Christina, welcome to the Scenic Route Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Ooh, I'm really excited to talk to you about today because I feel we're going to talk about, like, just before, listen, you should have listened to what I haven't recorded, like, this 30 seconds before I hit play, where we're, like, already, like, philosophically in deep waters. I'm like, dang. But anyway, um, we're gonna talk about something I feel we're all on a journey on in different, like, I don't know, different miles markers for each one of us. And since I feel it's like a journey, we can never reach to the end. We can never make it on top of Mount Self-Love. It's a different journey for all of us. So, Christina, what is like, what obstacles have you faced on your journey towards embracing self-love, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I think I'm going to start
Or
by
are
like
overcoming them?
arguing with you a little bit on like, I mean,
Sure.
not more like friendly banter, but like the like even the idea of like we're trying to get to more like a space of more self-love is like the wrong way to look at it, because we're like the purpose of love is like at the root of love is acceptance. Not
Yes.
acceptance of like bad treatment, but rather acceptance of what is, and
Yes.
loving what is in yourself, loving who you
Yes.
are right now, right?
Yes.
So that being the goal, we can't really look at like someday like I'll be more self-loving and say that like then I will be good enough, because that like then I'll be good enough is implied, and then
Yes.
we've got this like
I
spiritual
agree.
bypassing and like this like
Yes,
that
I agree.
whole capitalistic version of spirituality that like keeps us coming back for more books and more resources and things to fix ourselves, and
That's
like
why I do free shit. You could just listen to this podcast. But yeah, agreed. If you look at self-love as a thing to, oh, I need to love myself to this amount first so I deserve something.
yeah.
Dangerous waters.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is like so much of this is implied, not said, right? The thing that's said is that we should
Mm.
love ourselves. And like,
Yes.
yes. And like no one's ever going to say like you need to wait to be enough to love yourself, but the way that you need to love yourself is said. It is implied that you're not okay until you're doing that thing.
Yes. And
So there's like,
and it's also implied, how can you love yourself if you don't look a certain way, behave how it's expected of you to behave?
yes.
Da 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 da.
Yeah, because that's actually the dangerous part. That's the part that feels scary. Is
Mm,
like accepting who you are right now and owning who you are right now means not like defending yourself, and also taking responsibility, and it gives this like vulnerability of like if you don't like me then you might not like me, and I might have to feel that you don't like me, and that's vulnerable because I do like me. There's this thing that
mm-hmm.
happens when we're younger, and I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but for me it's like I'm on a playground or I'm at a place and it's like somebody says your shoes look weird, and I'm like, yeah, they're so weird, you know? Like immediately I take their side, because for me it feels safer to agree with them and join in on the joke than to disagree with them. And
Mm-hmm.
that simple like little self-abandonment as a way of coping is the way on a much
Mm.
grander scale that all of us just kind of operate about a lot of things within
Yes.
self-love and about things about ourselves, that we're just like,
Yes.
yeah, I'm totally shit because I do this. And as long as we're saying that we're shit, other people are like, yeah, that's fine. It's cool
Yes.
that you do it as long
Oh,
as you
I
say that you're shit.
relate. It's almost like you want to beat him to the punch.
Exactly.
Oh, I relate. Like, I had this especially with weight.
Mm.
I wasn't a like particularly fat child. I was overweight. Still am, but like, I did figure skating, right? Like, I'm still able to move my body and everything. And it was kind of like, as long as I could like bring in like, oh, I'm the jolly fat kid joke before to kind of like beat people to the punch and be funny, because fat people at least should be funny. It was kind of like my coping mechanism of I had no other tools as a kid than that. So I was surviving with what you said is self-abandonment, and I totally agree.
Yeah, we do that. We all do that in so many subtle ways.
Mm-hmm.
In every little thing that we're just like, oh yeah, I should totally be waking up earlier. I should totally be working out every day. I should totally be journaling more. Like I should be doing whatever. As long as we're shaming ourselves for not doing the things that other people expect of us and that we expect of us, we're like riding in this safe space, or what we feel like is a safer space of self-abandonment. It's the same thing. We're beating them to the punch. As long as we see our flaws and we call them out, then we don't have that vulnerability or that weakness of someone else pointing it out first. So we're hypercritical in those, like, if I'm hypercritical of myself, I already know all the things. No one can surprise me with shit that I'm doing, which is funny because it's like, it's not like we can really
so
all see ourselves. Yes, I'm so smart. I see all my flaws, and because it's less scary, like, than just being surprised by it. Sometimes you were a bitch and someone calls you out on it. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, and I mean, especially, everyone has different areas where when they get called out or called in, like they don't give a crap. And you have areas where you're like, man, I tried so hard, like, fudge.
Yeah.
But so the thing, so back to self-love, then how can we define self-love? From what we've talked, I kind of have an inkling that it's involves keeping promises to ourselves. Like when I say I go to the gym and then really keep it and really go if I want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I believe trust is like a part of any relationship, so there has to be that element there. But I think for my understanding of self-love and the way that I think this is actually going to have an impact on society and on us individually is that it is a compassionate presence. So it has to be with us. We have to be with us and experiencing the feelings that are real, not that we're telling, oh, that's a bad feeling or this is a good feeling, but being with the feelings as they arrive and not shaming them and being compassionate with them. Because yeah, there is the element of like, I want to go to the gym, and it's like, okay, yeah, and then there's accountability there. But like, how are you meeting yourself and how are you getting yourself there? Like, how are you meeting yourself in that entire process?
Yeah.
How are you being with yourself in this experience?
Yeah.
What's the motivation? And like, are you allowing yourself to compassionately be human? Because again, back to the like, this like hyper spiritual and like hyper moral way of viewing life and living is a desire to escape the vulnerability of being human, and we can't actually do that. So it is a lifelong race of avoiding vulnerability, which isn't possible. It's a desire to control what can't be controlled. It is, whether within ourselves or externally, like the practice of self-love to me is, for one, a practice of presence, of just being with what is, not constantly being fucking present, but like of presence.
It's no spirituality guru contest, right?
It's actually true spirituality. It's not the stuff that sells. It's the stuff that actually changes. And it doesn't sell because it's not going to work in six simple steps, and it's not going to like cure you in 6 weeks or whatever. It's not like,
and it's in the small things.
it is. And it's also in like the most vulnerable, like I'd rather not touch that. Like I'd rather not like be nice to myself when I've messed up again and yelled at my kid, or like it's those moments where like if we're struggling with addiction and we're seeing what we're doing and we're doing that, can we
And we
meet
keep on
ourselves?
doing it.
Yeah, can we meet
Yeah.
ourselves there with compassion? Because compassionate
Mm.
presence is actually the thing that will change that cycle.
Mm.
If we just continue to shame ourselves, we will just stay there.
Yes. So meeting us where we are, brutally honest or compassionately honest,
Mm,
I suspect for a lot of us, it involves deconditioning of sorts.
yeah.
Because I mean, when I grew up, feelings, let's like so-called negative feelings of
Mm,
anger, for example, anger or crying when you hurt your knee or something, like when you scraped your knee on a playground. It was not something that was encouraged.
mm,
And and I mean, I have a practice now whenever my son, I mean, he's sometimes like a typical 4-year-old, bless his heart, and has his like tantrums out of the blue, where I'm like, I see you're angry and I love you. Right? I don't know, it's not something growing up, I haven't really heard that. It was always more like, oh, we don't like just I don't know, don't behave like that, or oh, it wasn't that bad, or it didn't hurt that much, or some kind of that, and you really have to find
yeah.
your way through it again.
Yeah. And take that and like, and hear like, Jennifer, you're angry. And
Mm,
that's okay.
mm,
Your anger is valid. It
mm,
makes sense that you're angry right now. That is meeting yourself with compassion. Like, we already know how to do this.
mm.
It's just we haven't been allowed or given permission to do this to ourselves.
Yes, exactly. How can we give ourselves permission? Is it so hard to extend the grace that that we give others, to give it ourselves too?
It feels vulnerable because, like you said, we were
Mm,
met with don't do that. Don't
mm,
feel that. The response that we were taught was one of repression. So it's very easy for us to maintain that. My suggestion then, in the presence of like, why is it so hard for me to be compassionate to myself, is to meet that part with compassion. This
mm,
is so hard for me. It makes sense that this is hard for me. It's
mm-hmm,
okay that it's fucking hard for me to just be nice. It's
mm,
okay. It makes every individual being is brilliant, and what they're doing makes absolutely exact perfect sense when you look
mm-hmm,
at them. There's this example, I think it was from Dr. Peter Levine. He says like there's like a person running through a town screaming, and everyone's looking at this person like they're crazy.
mm-hmm,
And then they see the lion running after this person, and he makes sense. That's
mm-hmm,
trauma. That's every single person you meet.
mm,
There's so many things in us, even within ourselves, that don't make sense if we haven't seen the lion. And because of that, it's safe to assume that there's a lion somewhere that's chasing someone, because it's
mm,
happening to all of us. So
mm-hmm,
it makes perfect sense. Your behavior always makes perfect sense. Your feelings always make sense.
mm-hmm.
And that is meeting yourself with compassion. Is like, this is hard, and whether it makes you cry or want to punch a wall, that it's hard for you to have compassion for yourself, like
Yeah.
that's usually I'm whimpering and like putting myself on the ground, like that's my response.
You do you. Does does curiosity help us too? And like trying to understand why do I feel angry now? Why do I
Mm.
feel sad now?
Yeah, I
Like,
think
what do you
that's
think?
part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think depending on the person, depending on what area of your whole body experience you're used to strengthening more. For me, it's always been easiest to jump to the why am I doing this and try to figure it out and
Mm-hmm.
skip the compassion part. So personally, I'd recommend the like meeting yourself with compassion first. before you try to make a story, before you try to label it, before you try to completely understand it, take a moment to be with it if you can.
Yeah.
And feel it, and also just be like, this is so hard, and that's okay. It's okay that it's hard. I don't like it. It's whatever, but actually just be with it before, and then give yourself space until you're back on rational online and you have emotional space to process
To
what
actually
was
figure
actually going
out,
on.
okay, why is this like triggering me, or why is this making me feel a certain way?
Yeah, because what you're allowing to happen in that moment where you're being with the compassionate, you're compassionately being in the moment with that feeling, is you're releasing shame. Because otherwise that's where the shame lives. And then you can
Yeah.
jump quickly to figuring out why are you like this? Why is this happening? You know, it's like then
Oh yeah,
then
then you have
that
the
mode
ego.
of questioning comes in, like, what the fuck is wrong with me? You know?
Oh God, yes, yes. And that brings me back to what you said before, about addiction, and how I'm sure a lot of people listening in have something they know that is not good for them, or they feel like, I don't want to be doing this, but I keep on doing that. And we could like classify this as addiction to some extent, but I'm curious to how because you brought it up, how you define addiction. What is an addiction to you, so that we can also look at it, how, when is an addiction or something, that an addictive behavior or something we would not like to be doing, when is it actually hurting us, and when can we just like let it be? We don't have to over therapy it.
Yeah, I mean, the immediate question that comes to mind is, how do you know this is a problem for you?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because like, if you tend to like do this a lot or flap your hands, whatever, it's like, why, how do you know that's a problem for you? Is someone else telling you that this is a problem for you, or is this getting in the
Yeah.
way of your life? Is this making you feel bad? Like, what's happening there? Because otherwise it's going to come from a place of shame. Like,
Mm.
I should be, again, back to the, like, I should be going
Mm.
to the gym, I should be doing this. It's like,
I
okay, well,
should
how
eat
do you know?
healthier, or I should drink
Yeah,
more water, or whatever
how do you
the
know
food
this
is.
is a problem for you? And like, what is actually, why does this matter? You know, like, because I think it is so easy to get caught up in like changing things just to change things. But
Oh,
when we can name, like, and that's in and of itself a way of coping from, I feel like, oh,
like a
that's a form,
deflection mechanism, like we want to
or a
deflect.
form of addiction, self-perfecting. Like,
Mm.
you know, it gives you a
Yeah.
similar high when you get something right, you know, like,
Mhm.
it's it's all like, it's all a part of being human. But like you said, how do you know, is like, how do you know this is a problem for you? Like, is it interfering with something that really matters to you?
Mm.
And then moving from that space. Because I think if it's a problem for you,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
Yeah, I guess. And it's really something that doesn't, and it goes back to what you feel. If you feel the lion behind you, or if you feel it's a problem, and that problem doesn't have to make any sense to anybody else, right?
no.
It's something deeply personal. If you feel like, it doesn't have to make sense to any bystander.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an interesting phenomenon that happens, I think, with like when we set a goal, and this is true for like a sobriety as well.
Mm.
Like, we have like, again, our minds are brilliant, right? And there's a lot of parts of us. I see us as like, we have a lot of parts, right? And
Hmm.
there is a part of us that's like, in some like teachings they call it like the persona.
Hmm.
And so say like I set a goal to like, um this is like a real life example. A year ago I set a goal to like do yoga regularly. And so I had like the schedule, and then like I did it for like a couple weeks, and then I hit this certain place and I was like feeling good, and then it's like you hit this like resistance space, and
Yes.
a part of me it sounds a whole lot like me jumps in and says, maybe you're doing this because you're insecure about your body. Like, what if you're doing this because you're like shaming your body and like you need to be more accepting of yourself as the way you are? And it uses something that matters to me to try and talk me out of doing something that is important to me. And it's very interesting because it's like it's using my logic, it's using my values,
Nasty little bugger.
yes, to try to get me out of this, like, I already decided. And I feel like that's why it's so important to know, okay, well, why is this a problem for me? Why does this matter to me? Why am I doing this again?
Yeah, the why
I need
behind.
I need to know that, because when this voice pops in, I can be like, yeah, okay, we've addressed this.
How
Thank
can you
you for being
spot that
here.
voice? Because as you said, I mean, I know this voice too, and it mimics me. And it uses my logic and all my like smart wits.
Mm-hmm.
How do you spot it? Like, what are your telltale signs where you're like,
Yeah.
uh-oh, I gotta pay attention, close attention now.
The number one goal of this voice
Mm.
is to avoid change,
Oh,
because
yeah.
because
Be in the safety of what is.
because it dies. It's ego. A part of
Mhm.
our identity dies when we actually change. And that's just literally a part of life, but there is always going to be a part of us that resists that because it's
Mm.
uncomfortable and it does not know what is around this corner.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So
you don't know, so it's using
so
all these
unsafe.
methods. Yeah, so that's how you know. It's like, is what this is suggesting preventing the change that I'm trying to achieve?
Oh.
It always is.
Yes. Yeah. From my just going back to like the most prominent memories, recollections, I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. That 100% checks out. Damn. So we have this voice, and I don't know about you. I'm on a different mile marker. How can we I'm good at recognizing this voice. And sometimes the voice still wins,
Mm-hmm.
which it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So how, especially when we're going through bigger transitions in life, how can we hold ourselves? Like, what are maybe practices that we can uphold, or habits that you've developed that you know can help us through um these transitional periods of our lives?
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite practices is Kristen Neff's self-compassion practice. And and I would recommend, like, to anyone to read her book. It's incredible. Or listen to it. I listened to the audiobook. She reads it
What's it called
herself.
so we can link it in the show notes?
It's actually just called Self-Compassion.
Oh, that's a great title. Okay,
Um,
perfect.
but the practice that was most profound to me is like placing a hand on your heart and connecting with yourself and saying, this is
Mhm.
really hard for me. And then
Mm,
connecting with everyone. We all experience this. Everyone feels this sometimes. And it's okay. And just being with it, offering yourself whatever else you need as supportive words. If you don't have other words, I would write something out ahead of time so that you can simply say it,
mhm,
if it feels hard to come up with something. But what you're talking about is real. Like, a part of recovery is relapse.
mhm,
A part of change is that titration. It's a little bit and then a little bit and then a little bit. Like, we would die if we just did it, like,
mm,
we evolve. We don't like instantly change. And that's that's healthy, actually. That is part of the process, is turning to goo or whatever. Like it's messy and it's like
Yeah,
it
I
feels
have.
like goo sometimes.
Oh, it does. It sure does. I have like these like 90s toy slimy thingies in my head that were like bright orange or bright pink. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the
Gooey.
Nickelodeon slime or something. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Sticks
Yeah.
everywhere.
We know this, us 90s kids, lots of goo.
Mm.
But it's like if you're like your plan or your what would you call it? Like your philosophy or your focus or your theory doesn't allow for that kind of humanity, then it's like spiritual bypassing bullshit.
Mm.
Because what you just described is like, well, sometimes I listen to the voice. It's like, well, yeah, of course you do.
Mm.
You're human. It's like, well, then how do we incorporate that in and make that like a part of this process? Because
Mm.
that is reality.
Yeah.
You know, if
Yeah.
otherwise it's like then we're just creating a cycle of shame if it's like, well, now you have to start over. Like
Yeah. Like this is really where the I don't know, for me, that's also like an ego telltale sign of this, like it's just black and white. You
Mhm.
know, like, oh, now I fucked this up already anyway. I might as well like throw everything to the ground. Like, don't
Yeah.
bother. That's all or nothing.
Mm.
As if you could, as if one misstep, air quotes, is like undoing
Mm.
something you've done. Like work on yourself, growth, whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah,
it's like
how
bullshit.
distracting is it to live that way too? Because if
Oh.
you continually live in that space, which believe me, I have many years living in that
Believe me, I was
space,
a resident there.
still am a lot of the time. It's so distracting. We are so much more easy to manipulate and control when we are living
Mm.
in the space of like, oh, so I was raised in like extreme religion, and there's this like cycle, right? That is just like kind of a part of like living in the spaces that I was living. It's where you have like a high moment where you like feel connected to God, and then
Hmm.
you sin, you mess up, you do
Okay, you do
something.
something human and you're like, poof, gone.
Usually it's masturbation if you're in junior high and you're in youth group, okay?
Fair
So
enough.
that happens
Yeah.
and you're like, then you find a way to shame yourself for it. You confess to like your youth leader or your friend. You're like, I'm so evil and sinful and whatever, all these things. So you shame yourself, and then you have this moment of recommitting and you're like, no, I'm gonna fucking do this. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
this. I have a
Never
plan.
gonna touch
I'm never
my
gonna
weenie or vagina again.
hands are never going down there. So it's like you start over, right? And then you mess up because you're human. And this isn't the best example because masturbation is normal and healthy. But like you hear me on like
But
the
it's a good
this
example still because religion uses it as a tool against yourself.
it is. It's a cycle that then keeps you stuck. And how is that that much different than the cycles that we get in with perfecting ourselves and trying to avoid being human by doing things that other people tell us are important, and by like trying to maintain a cycle of perfection? I mean, perfection is a tool of white supremacy. So if we're like looking at this as a whole,
Yes.
it's like we are so much more easy to manipulate when we are
Yes.
focused on perfection.
We're so much more gullible to buy shit we don't need. So, I don't
Yeah.
know. We're off buying another self-help book or another crystal with the expectation of this is going to, I don't know, be our salvation or whatever.
Yes, and nobody's allowed to say that anymore because we all know that's bullshit, but we still think it internally when we're doing the purchasing.
Oh God, yes. The things we're not, we don't or can't or won't say anymore, but we still all believe. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, this could, I don't know. This is a topic for another whole fucking episode. Dear Lord. But it's really interesting with then like if So we've identified, okay, addiction is something that you have a problem with that is really deeply troubling you for whatever reason.
Mm.
Um, and you have, and sometimes you relapse or you do something you don't intend to do, and your ego comes in. Um, and how, like, I know you have your own personal stories of addiction, and to some extent, everybody does with whatever it is. Like, how did you know you were ready to give it up? Whatever was your like substance or uh, whatever substance of choice or
Yeah. I would first say like it is one thing to say like there's a problem, like you have a problem,
yeah.
and that feels like vulnerable and like humbling in many ways. And I think that people can find that beneficial and useful. But
Mm-hmm.
like below that, like you have a hurt.
Mm,
Like you were hurt. And that is the root of this. It has nothing to do with the substance that you've chosen
mm,
to use. Like you've been harmed and there's healing that's needed there. And I think it's critical to allow that to be the focus or a huge part of your focus in a journey of sobriety, because in those moments of relapse or messing up or whatever you want to call it, that process, even in like a natural part of recovery process, allowing you to see yourself not as a victim, but
mm,
as someone who's been hurt and needs healing. It can empower you to choose healing, and it also allows you to see what's really going on rather than an identifier that like can bring shame.
mm. In
Um, go ahead.
in order to like truly see what's going on, to what extent do we need to know the cause of our hurt? Like, is it enough to recognize that it's a hurt that we're trying to cope with?
Mm, I think that would depend on the individual.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
You know, like there are some of us who like don't have full memories of
Mm,
things yet. And that doesn't mean that you can't begin healing, you know?
mm.
And there are other people who it's very apparent and they already know.
You start to heal the first layer, and then I don't know, like onions or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because life is the process, right? Like we're not done. We're never done
Unless we're like literally done.
unless you're
Unless you believe in a
gone.
spiritual afterlife, which
And even then your cells are gonna go on to create trees and whatever
oh
else.
yeah, yeah.
So we're not done. Like life is not in the like I did it part. Life is in the like process. So you don't necessarily need to know everything to fully heal. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is nothing wrong with you exactly as you are right now. Healing is in offering yourself compassion and grace right now, wherever that is that you are met.
That's also not selling shit. It,
It's not. It's not right. It's not. It's like I tried to before I applied to grad school, I tried to like hustle my way into like a career as a life coach, and I'm an incredible life coach, but like I really tried to like sell it, and I
yeah,
had such a
I
hard
feel you.
time because I was like what I'm selling is not
It's
marketing
not,
material.
yes, I feel you. Like people who work with me, they work with me because reasons that sometimes I haven't fully uncovered, but like it, I'm like literally like telling them, like all this stuff that is not marketable. Like that's not an
Mm-mm.
that every marketing book tells you not to do.
Yeah.
And it's just like I don't know because I also don't believe in like I don't know, pinpoint marketing, whatever that's supposed, like,
Yeah.
it's just like, well, I mean, you're perfectly as you're perfect as you are. There's nothing you need to be, do, see, achieve, whatever, to something. Insert your dream, desire, whatever. And yeah, that shit doesn't market.
No, it just does not. It is the laborious day-to-day simple things that will like radically change your life. And that is like the hard stuff that we were trying to avoid by buying the 6-week package that says it'll change us, right? Like,
Yeah.
we buy the book that we think is going to fix us and just alter us because we don't want to just do the vitamin every morning for the next 3 years.
Or drink the water, do the breath work exercise, or whatever is your kind of thing.
Yeah, whatever you're trying to avoid, whatever makes you feel the most vulnerable.
Yeah, and it's really tempting. And I mean, we're on the Scenic Route Podcast, so there's no highway fast track to whatever you want to go. And everyone who is kind of like, is in all areas, in business or in life or whatever, tells you that these are the 6 hidden steps to unlock whatever. It's usually full of crap.
Yeah.
Or it worked for them, which doesn't
Yeah.
mean it works for you.
Well, and if it worked for them, it worked for them because they had like all these other years of hidden internal work that led up to these like moments,
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's not useful. It's like, I feel like
I mean,
you get something out of every course you
yes,
do.
Yes, I truly believe in every book I read, it could be whatever. Like, there's always something I take with it, out of it, because I decided that I love to learn and I'm curious and I can learn from anything. But yeah.
Yeah, what
I
if we
wish
do
I had
it?
certain learnings that didn't cost me as much.
Like, what if like we are doing ourselves a disservice by going into these things thinking they'll cure us, because in doing so we are missing the richness of the thing in there that takes longer for us to heal.
Yes. I actually have this on the intake forum with new clients of kind of like phrasing it of, why are you working with me? Like, and with the intention of, do you believe working with me is kind of like the silver bullet? Because if yes, we should not be working together, because you will be disappointed and I'll be unhappy, because I don't know, right? There's no silver bullet, and it's really interesting. I actually I had this a couple of years ago with my mindset coach at the time. I was like, back a couple of years back, I was always kind of like between whenever things weren't like as peachy in my business, I was like, maybe I should do a PhD, like for fun, whatever. And
for fun. I don't want to do a PhD for fun.
I know. Well, I mean, that would be also
I think it sounds
a bit
fun,
of my weird. I know it's a bit of my weird, but I was realizing it wasn't. And she was asking me all these questions. I'm like, yeah, it's not for the fun of it, right? If you decide to do whatever you want to do, whatever course, with the intention of, I don't know, this sounds fun, I just want to do it, then you go do it. But if you attach certain expectations to it, of this will allow me to be whoever I want to be, that would be one of my telltale signs for me personally, to be like, I really should think about this investment.
Yeah, for me it's always like, well, who would I be if I had that, and why am I not like that now? My cat is literally trying to break down my door. I'm sorry if that's
I do not hear the cat at all.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's, for me, it's always like, who do I think I'm gonna be with, like, after I have this, I'm actually going back to
reminds
school
me
to
of
get
like
my
my
master's in
20
counseling.
something. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
So like but it definitely is coming from a much different motivation than I have been before, you know?
Yeah. Oh, agreed. And the same with the motivation behind it reminded me of like a lot of my purchases in my 20s of like, oh, I'm gonna buy these shoes or that handbag because I can tell myself a little story about myself, how I am because I bought these things. And now people are like, and don't go so quick on jumping to conclusion like I don't know, it has to do anything with designer. You can do that with fucking Birkenstocks and just you like this to tell yourself you're like down to earth and like sustainable and whatever kind of shit. Right? I mean it doesn't it works all the ways about the story you
Yeah.
like to tell yourself.
Oh, everything we do is for a feeling, isn't it?
Yes. And which ultimately is also life, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
feelings is life. If we go through life without feeling anything, why
Yeah, no,
why
it's
bother?
not bad. It's not bad at all. It's just true. Like
Yeah.
we do and desire what we desire because of the feeling we believe it'll bring us. And
Yes.
that's just like you said, that's just life. That's just what is. Like that's not a bad thing. It's sometimes important to get curious around it if you notice yourself doing the same thing and that feeling isn't really coming with it like you
Yeah.
thought it would, or it's like, well, this isn't
Yes.
working
Or
for
it
me
just
anymore.
quickly evaporating the moment you got the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Getting more things might not be the solution. Hint. But is it interesting how like how we kind of said okay, like to live is to feel,
Mm.
but at the same time, feeling our feelings is so fucking hard.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Like that, like life is what we're here to do, and also life is so hard. Like we
Like
came here to be, right? Like we came here to have the
being is so
full,
hard.
and being is so hard. Like, and also it's like,
The irony of it all.
yeah, and it's so like there's just so much, like everything matters and nothing matters, and it's all like right in front of us. And it's like
Oh,
we
we're
can
going
have,
deep existentialism now. Dear Lord.
yeah, I mean, this is where I live. Like it's just, oh God, like the
I feel
grass
you.
and the ground feels so profound and nothing matters. Like
Nothing else
it's
matters.
that's what's so beautiful. Like we get to create the meaning in our
Hmm.
lives. So like what meaning are you making? Like
Yes.
you get to make it up.
Yes.
So what do you
It's a
want?
pleasure and it can be a curse.
Yes, but that is everything too. Like
Yeah.
there is actually no one and the other. They are the same. I am
Yes.
controlling, and that is why I get stuff done. I am like bossy, and that is why things are organized. I'm passive, and that is why I know how to relax. Like these are one and the same. They don't exist separately. They are like all a part of what makes life exist. Life is a tree that grows up and then dies. Like it's all tree.
Yes. Oh, okay. I feel like there's no other way to end this conversation. Like I feel my brain needs to process. I feel if you're watching this, not just listening, you could really be like see my brain process.
Yeah, I mean, to bring that all down to earth, like I feel like it puts you in a place of absolute sovereignty in your life.
Yes.
You get to choose the meaning. And
Yes.
because you get to choose
You're
the
free to
meaning,
choose.
you feel free to choose what you want. And also,
Yes.
like, you can meet yourself with compassion anywhere in the process. And because of that, like, at any point, you can jump a timeline or whatever and change your entire
Yes.
life. You are the one who has all of this power. And at the same time, it doesn't matter near as much as it feels. So you control
Mhm.
it. And also, like, it's not that big of a deal. There's no pressure. And you get to
Yeah.
create.
The big deal is our ego voice talking. That
Yeah.
blows it up out of proportion
Yeah.
into something bigger than life.
Yeah. Like, what if it turns out amazing? Like, what if you get to create a masterpiece? Like, what if you do well and allow yourself to receive love? And what if all you have to do is cry once to move through this feeling? And like, what if it feels really good to
Which
cry and
only
move
lasts
through it?
like, I mean, science tells us your feelings last around 90 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hug someone through that? Like
And you
your
cry for
cat,
90
maybe?
seconds.
Yeah.
I'm sure we
That's,
can all do that.
if you can't, it's fine too.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Because whatever.
You will get another chance.
Yep.
There'll be some disappointing curveball coming your way another day.
Yeah, again, you're literally going to always be in process, so why not relax for a little bit?
Yeah. Know when to like hold them and know when to like not. Just no, not today.
Yeah, the weird thing too is like there's like, well then how do I know? Like how do I know like when to do this and when to do that? It's like,
Oh,
well, you
when to
actually,
like not address it or like or
yeah, and you have to trust yourself. And it's like, okay, well, how do I learn to trust myself? By trusting yourself. That's it. Like you don't get to like get there by like just knowing all of a sudden now I can trust myself. It's
it's
just
also
a
not a
matter of
theoretical concept. You cannot
nope,
think your way into
nope.
it. You cannot think your way through out of it.
You
It's like
just have to do it. Make it small to start with, but like honestly,
yeah,
it
smaller than you
is,
think. Like if you think
yeah,
of something, like
make it smaller.
yeah, like cut it in like half, four
Fold it
parts,
in
six,
half
eight
8 times.
parts. Yeah, like until you feel like that's ridiculous. Then you're there. Then do that thing.
Yeah, yeah, and then seriously celebrate yourself when you do and keep going.
Yes. Oh, yes. Christina, well, first, thank you so much for being on a scenic route with me. Where can if people want to hear more of you, where can they find you? Where can wait, like tell us where you are online so we can link it in
Yeah,
the show notes.
thanks for having me. This has been really fun. Appreciate you going existential with me.
Oh,
I
we could do another episode on Sartre. Like, I mean, yes, here for it.
anyone can find me on ChristinaMCarlson.com. That's my website. I'm at Christina Carlson Life Coach on Instagram, or career coach now. See, the thing is, I do career coaching and life coaching, and I'm currently studying for my master's in counseling. So my long-term goal is to do therapy, but I do have one-on-one clients now. They're just limited, but I always want to hear from people. The best way to get in touch with me is through my website and just sending me an email. I love hearing from you.
Perfect. I have one more last question that I ask everyone. What book are you currently reading or what audiobook are you currently listening to?
Ooh, okay. So I always read 2 books at a time, one fiction and one nonfiction.
That's the spirit. Yes.
I'm reading one of Richard Schwartz's book. I've never heard it said. But he is the creator of the theory of internal family systems.
Mm-hmm.
And he's written a couple books about it. It's internal family systems therapy, and it's one of the most fascinating concepts to me, because it's been known to heal some of the most profound mental illnesses. Not heal as in like, fix people, but rather support people to function
Oh.
with
Mm-hmm.
compassion in their regular lives. That's called You Were the One for Me, I believe. I'm gonna have to look it up. I read it so much without looking at what the cover is. I believe it's like You Are the One for You or something like that, but I will send it to you so you can put it in the show notes.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm currently obsessed with Frida McFadden. She's a fiction psychological thriller writer. And I'm on like one of her, I don't know, she's written like 10 books. I'm on like the 6th, called like The Surrogate Mother or something like that. It's nonsensical psychological thrillers that always have a twist, and
To
I
kind of like
love,
relax.
yeah, dude, I love that stuff.
That's cool. You know yourself and you do you. Okay, we're gonna link these and they all go into the Scenic Routes library. So whenever you're like out of material to read, you can have a look there and you'll find something that tickles your fancy. So again, Christina, thank you so much for being on a Scenic Route with me.
Thanks for having me.